Hello, how you doing? It's currently 6:07 p.m. here in Toronto, Canada. First of all, hi, my name is Diego Arreola Fernandez. I was a Global Youth Climate Challenges 2022 participant last year in team number two. We're focusing on illegal logging. I would have loved to join you live, but due to the time difference, I had to make these arrangements in order to be able to present to you a little bit about the experience, the plan, the proposal that we developed, and like the whole research and collaboration process. And it seems like it was going to be very late for me here in Canada. I'm recording it now. So I hope that any questions that you have, you can please share them with the leadership team with the GYCC Youth Lab so they can like pass it on to me and then I can reply them. I'm always also free on my socials. I'm gonna like put them as well here in the chat or like send them to the GYCC so they can share them with you. And yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna present here and I'm gonna talk to you about a little bit about the research process and how everything developed, how was my experience working on a proposal to address illegal logging in Mexico, in Latin America, and across the world through a collaborative framework. Um, and so, yeah, just a little bit of context on me. I'm from Mexico City. I live here in Canada where I'm studying my undergraduate studies in international relations and economics. I have a nonprofit organization focused on environmental education, especially for children and youth from the global south. And this particular issue is one that it's very important in Mexico because there are like these huge networks of illegal logging that contribute not only to the environmental crisis that we live, but also to the social and economic crisis and the political chaos that sometimes unfolds in a lot of regions in Mexico due to lack of accountability, to corruption, to nepotism, and illegal logging. That for some people it might seem that it's how can it be related to these problems, but as you're going to learn in just a few minutes, it really contributes to a lot of these problems that like just keep exacerbating each other like a loop. So before coming to Seoul in the summer of 2022, which is still this year. I said last year, but no, it's this year. Um, we had to like really like commit to research much more than we knew about the problem that we were assigned. So in my case, illegal logging, and just like a bit of like experience that I had with this, it was that I realized that it was super important to go and focus on a lot of primary sources. And with this, I'm talking about like government websites and reports by organizations and by like government of Mexico. And then when I started to also research a bit more on illegal logging in other countries in Latin America, I would try to go to either the websites of multilateral organizations or to reports made by these international NGOs, or just also like the website of the government, and just try to compare the numbers, each one of those, try to compare the different reports, especially the ones that were like updated and like closer in date, the most recent ones. And it was really interesting because as I started like to dive deeper into all of these reports and all of this information, I started to notice a lot of connections and a lot of patterns in how the years in which legal logging had been like wider and like bigger, and like the data of like the statistics of it was like bigger. It was also like contributing to the problem of economic crisis, and also contributing to a lot of the insecurity data in Mexico. And that happened the same for a lot of other countries in Latin America, like Venezuela, like Colombia. And so that's like where it starts to like come together. And then according to a lot of studies, especially those made by international organizations like the UN, like FAO, like the World Wildlife Forum, they estimate that some of the causes of illegal logging have a lot to do with these social networks and like these social crises and accountability crises that there is in a lot of places in Latin America, like Mexico, in which there are like these organized crime organizations, and also like these drug dealing organizations that have to use the land and therefore proceed with legal logging to clear the land in order to use it for their means, for illegal means. And since there are like some links with government officials and there's this corruption with also like police enforcement, there is a lack of enforcement and policies that are actually preventing this from happening in the first place. And this is a huge problem because as we focused later on the whole logistics system and the whole supply chain from the illegal logging to the retail stores, this is one of the problems that we have to stop from the beginning. But it's a loop because there is also so much demand in other countries for cheap and for low cost logging products and wood from like usually the global south, that there's a lot of profit margin, a lot of interest in these organizations and these types of organizations and these cartels to proceed with legal logging and also like benefit from that other market. So as we started to notice that, we also started to notice that there was another huge problem in the middle of the supply chain that I talked about before the products arriving into the final place. There is this weird loophole in which there's a lack of information and exact data on what happens to illegal logging. And so like importing countries such as the European Union, which is the one that we focus on with my team in the project, the GYCC, we realized that importing countries don't really know which wood products are from illegal sources and which one are from legal sources because they get lost during this logistics process and during the supply process. And so as we started to like notice a little bit about these patterns and like collaborate, some people researching about their own countries, about Guatemala and Europe and Albania and Mexico, we started to notice all these patterns and how they all were connected. And that's how we started to develop this framework, especially focused on that specific cause and the cause of how to track this supply in the middle, just to make sure to know which wood products come from illegal sources and which ones doesn't, and so be able to enforce policies in the destination place, the importing countries, in order to make sure that they only buy from legal sources. And in that way, we can also fix that first issue that we talked about, that illegal logging and that huge demand. We can cut that demand for illegal logging because with this sort of tracking, we can really affect this demand from these global, from the importing countries, and then cut this supply of illegal logging. And then as we started to collaborate with one another, which is super important as well, that was like a really huge part of my experience. I really liked collaborating with these youth activists from all over the world. I think that was what really benefited and improved our policy in order to be able to develop this framework with different ideas and different advantages and points from different perspectives from different parts of the world. And so we came up with this multilateral proposal for a multilateral agreement in order to create a tracking system. So like kind of like a passport, these are one of the metaphors that we use in our final presentation in order to make sure that we know which wood comes from which part with either like GIS or GPS technologies in order to promote accountability, to put this power of action on the final consumers and to be able to reduce biodiversity loss and promote more biodiversity protection. And this also generates a lot of data on like that middle part, which is like was one of the most important parts also of our project. And so with all of this talking and all of this example of our specific project, I really want to make emphasis on the importance of comprehensive solutions, because it's not only how to reduce the problem of illegal logging in the source country, but how to take into account all the different complexities, both in the source country and in the process that it goes and that it encompasses for these wood products to go all the way from this country A to country C, passing through country B, and therefore like create this comprehensive solution that takes into account each one of these problems and tries to solve everything with an accountability system. And I think these two are super important in order to tackle the environmental crisis that we're living and to tackle different environmental problems, either if we're talking about plastic pollution, if we're talking about ocean conservation and how like plastics go into the ocean, we're talking about fossil fuels and our carbon footprint. These two are really important and essential parts in all policy frameworks. And this was something that I not only learned, but was able to apply working with the global youth climate challenges. Um, and even though there were like some like challenges about like the virtual format of it, and that sometimes it was difficult with time zones and with the COVID restrictions when we arrived there, I think these two learnings completely surpass and like offset the bad part about it. And it just leaves me with like a lot of foundations for my next projects, and for also hopefully be able to collaborate more with the GYCC heading for Colombia and for um, next projects as well. And yeah, I'm just super happy to talk about this. And if you have any doubts or any questions, I'm also here. So feel free to reach out and have a good day, I think. Yeah. Have a good day.